forgive me for this trap shit. Sergeant Smack making backflip. Telly Hank did with the action. With the Vato speaking Spanish. Frank Matthews, how I vanish. Poof. Came back like I'm King Tut. Gold BBS is on a beamer. When Fat Cat was 10 queens up. Ball off the profit, not the re-up. Fly like Puerto Rican Jesus. Uptown like I'm Baby Maine. Just caught a touchdown from the Bay.
But out of Staten Island, where an arrest has been made in the murder of a 53-year-old man back in November. 29-year-old Deron Miller is now behind bars. Police say he shot John Pena of Philadelphia in the chest last year. This is Citizen App video from the scene. It happened along Broad Street in the Stapleton section. The victim was pronounced dead at the hospital, and the suspect charged with murder, manslaughter, and criminal possession.
Now, when you think of Staten Island, you think of this.
From this area. You know what I'm saying? We got two that's from Brooklyn. You know what I'm saying? Dirty used to live uptown. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? But we originated our style out here in Staten Island. This is what we all got together as one. On some, yo, we gonna get money in this rap shit. We know we capable of doing that. You know what I mean? So boom, but this is where it started from. This is the grain right here. Y'all right on the soil right now. You know what I'm saying? This is Shaolin right here. You know what I'm saying? Look, just look at it. Flash around, you know what I'm saying?
America. So we love America. We love America, but Sister feed us. Come right here. Barbecue outside, a nice cool day.
So long and shit. Word up. What's up, Lay?
But depending where you at, it's more like this.
We visit one of New York City's most dangerous neighborhoods, and we do it with the commissioner of the NYPD.
Yeah, Commissioner Keyshawn Sewell walking the streets of the Stapleton section of Staten Island, where there has been a surge in gun violence, some of it deadly, including a 13-year-old boy who was gunned down last month on a playground.
Homicides may be down in New York City, but in this section of Staten Island, homicides are way up. With the commissioner today, N.J. Birkin, live on Staten Island for us. Newt?
And Bill, there are few places in the city where residents are living in fear the way they're living in Stapleton. You know, homicides are up 125% so far this year on Staten Island. So the commissioner's making it a top priority, where residents say crime is out of control.
This neighborhood is dangerous.
Samantha Ulloa says it's terrifying to live here. The Stapleton section of Staten Island is now one of the most dangerous places in the entire city. She fears not just for herself, but for her adult son, who is mentally ill.
I'm so scared something's gonna happen to him.
I see you have tears.
I have tears because I love him. I love my baby.
The fear is so real that NYPD Commissioner Keyshawn Sewell was determined to see for herself, touring the neighborhood with her top commanders, listening to residents and merchants, elected leaders and community outreach workers, searching for strategies and solutions.
They want us here, and they want to see more police. They want to have that visible presence, walking the streets, interacting with them.
In a city where murders are down nearly 14%, homicides here have more than doubled, with 9 so far this year. There were 3 shootings this past weekend, and just 3 weeks ago, a 13-year-old was struck and killed by a stray bullet fired by a 16-year-old.
He was playing and having a wonderful time, and now he's gone.
Yeah, and for what?
And for what? Because it's the generations, and it's unfortunate, and it has to stop.
Dozens of officers are being reassigned to the 120th precinct, which had been understaffed.
40 additional cops from outside of Staten Island, 3 lieutenants, 5 sergeants, 40 police officers under the leadership of a captain, will come out here and assist as well.
And community outreach will be stepped up in places like the Stapleton houses. Now, according to the ABC7NY safety tracker, 8 of the 9 homicides so far this year on Staten Island have happened within the 120th precinct, which covers Stapleton.
Staten Island, where an arrest has been made in the murder of a 53-year-old man back in November. 29-year-old Deron Miller is now behind bars. Police say he shot John Pena of Philadelphia in the chest last year. This is Citizen App video from the scene. It happened along Broad Street in the Stapleton section. The victim was pronounced dead at the hospital, and the suspect charged with murder, manslaughter, and criminal possession of a weapon.
Now, sometimes we come across these stories that I would describe as motion picture ready, and this is going to be one of those tales. What up, though? Salute the almighty MOBB. It's Shay's Popalot. We back on MOBB business. Now, today's story is going to take us to what I would call the 5th borough, or probably the forgotten dimension of NYC, and that's going to be Staten Island. And what I want to do is travel to Staten Island before 1993. So just about 30 years ago. And before that time, pre-Wu-Tang, the first thing you probably would think, or me personally, growing up in Brooklyn, was the ferry and that long-ass ride going. Though I only been one time, I often remember people complaining about a smell that Staten Island had. And definitely, most certainly, the mafia. And thinking about it now, it was definitely more than a lack of rappers that had come from the borough of Staten Island before the Wu-Tang. It was pretty much the lack of representation. And my main and only argument to this is going to be the classic BDP or Boogie Down Production song, The Bridge Is Over, where KRS-One would state the classic bars, Manhattan keeps on making it, Brooklyn keeps on taking it, the Bronx keeps creating it, while Queens keeps on faking it. And though a lot of people would have presumed Queens to take a L by him mentioning them in the way that he did, but at least they was mentioned. But since the emergence of the Wu-Tang Clan, it would cast a brighter light on the borough of Staten Island. And just because it was distant don't mean it was too far from the mayhem that was happening in New York City, as we covered some of the exploits from the island on this channel, like the saga of Ronell Wilson, or even the exploits of the Christian brothers, Anthony and Harvey, who were allegedly the heads of a violent narcotic distribution network that was headquartered in Park Hill from 1991 to 2011. But this story might possibly top all of those, and it's the story of John Don Trag Pena, or Tragedy, or according to the federal government, the last Don, or Moneybags. And according to the feds, Pena was the reputed leader of the Staten Island-based Gorilla Stone Mafia. Now, according to his indictment, the Gorilla Stone Mafia, or GSM, is a subgroup of the untouchable Gorilla Stone Nation, which is a faction of the nationwide Blood Street Gang, comprised of primarily individuals residing in or around the Stapleton neighborhood of Staten Island. They would go on further to say that members of the GSM would use intimidation, street threats of violence, acts of violence, including murder, robbery, and assault, to prevent or protect GSM's territory. Now, if the name Gorilla Stone sounds familiar, some of you guys might remember Brooklyn rapper Casanova being part of an 18-man indictment that was handed down not too long ago under the same Gorilla Stone umbrella. Now, the thing that kind of separates this story, that Don Trag would be accused of a March 2021 murder of a former GSM member and an alleged adversary, where the feds allege he would shoot the man 18 times not long after the two was at a memorial for another fallen GSM member who had died 1 year previously, or the fact that he would go on the run for several months, come back, break into another man's house, and shoot him 3 times in the head while he laid sleep with his girlfriend, all the while being wanted for a firearm violation in connection to the first murder. But it would be an incident involving his father in November of 2022, while a reputed gang leader locked up for those 2 bodies was fighting for his life. And I can definitely go deeper into the history of John Pena, as his criminal record goes way back to 2008. And some people would even consider him lucky to be on the streets to even commit that double murder, as in 2012, him and another man was involved in a vicious box cutter attack where an unknown suspect would ask the 2 for a cigarette, and it would end up with him getting his face slashed and beaten. And for his role in that attack, Don Trag was reportedly facing between 10 and 25 years. But it would be the murder of his 53-year-old father in that same Staple neighborhood where he was said to gun down 26-year-old Mark Bendejas in March 21 at a vigil for the fallen Avanti Brock. Now, depending on who you ask, this is where the mystery starts, because the 29-year-old man they would nab for the murder of the 53-year-old Deron Miller would reportedly be from the same neighborhood where Don Trag's second murder victim, Francisco Frankie Gonzalez, would be from, and also where authorities say that he headed a gang. Now, with the ties running so close, almost like 3 degrees of separation, some people could easily say that it might have been retribution for that first killing. Some people could say it was payback for the second killing. But the wildest speculation, and the thing that make this shit most movie-like to me, would be the statement that would be given by the chief of detectives, James Essick, where he would go on to explain the murder of 53-year-old John Pena Sr. as an internal gang strife, saying that after his son, Don Trag, was locked up, his father reportedly would leave from Philadelphia, where they reported him to have lived, to come to Stapleton to take over the gang. Now, had that statement not come from the chief of detectives, I would take that as the most absurd option, because that shit don't work like that. It's a hierarchy in these gangs. But they would explain a scenario where 2 unidentified individuals at the time, one of which being Deron Miller, would get into an altercation with the senior John Pena in front of the Stapleton houses, leading to one of the individuals pulling a handgun, firing shots that would result in John Pena Sr. pulling his own handgun before he was ultimately shot in the chest, causing him to collapse and fall to the floor, where he would drop his handgun when, just before dying, one of the 2 suspects would take his firearm and flee the scene. Miller would be the only person arrested for the homicide about a year later, still leaving the mystery to me of what really happened. Now, only wanted on a state charge connected to the first murder, Don Trag would eventually be federally indicted for murder in the aid of racketeering, where the feds would supposedly have the murder on tape. Them fucking guys. Now, I definitely need y'all to get in the comment box to let me know what's y'all take on the situation. If we got anybody from Staten Island, y'all get downstairs and run it up. If you from Stapleton, I almost want to say you got to tag your apartment and your building in this bitch. But shout out to the whole Staten Island. Y'all see we tapped in. Y'all make sure y'all hit the red subscribe button and the bell right under this video so y'all know when this real trill spill shit is dropping. Like I said, everybody tuned in, get in the comment box. Let me know what city y'all in. What's the latest shit that happened? What's the biggest story that went down? Who haven't I covered? What did I miss? What did I get wrong? All of that. Y'all know my direct line is Insta, Twitter, POP_A_LOT. And I'm going to be back before you know it. Mob shit is the protocol. Until then, it's your ace Popalot. Salute the almighty mob.